We start this morning, though, with the news that former President Donald Trump has been found liable for sexually abusing and defaming the writer E. Jean Carroll.
He was not found liable for raping her. Trump was ordered to pay Carroll $5 million in damages after a jury took just 3 hours to reach its verdict. Carroll's court victory comes 4 years after she first made the allegation that Trump raped her in a department store dressing room in the mid-90s. It's an allegation that the former president has repeatedly denied. Here to break down the verdict and what it means for Trump's future is NBC News correspondent Ron Allen, along with NBC News legal analyst Kristin Gibbons Feden. Kristin, let's start with you. Help us understand the jury's verdict here, which was reached in about 3 hours. How do you think they came to this decision? And that figure of $5 million, how was that calculated?
Well, they found Trump liable. They really believed what Jeannie Carroll was saying, and they looked at the mountain of evidence and found liability. Now, as you pointed out, they did not find him liable for the rape. So there was obviously some deliberations around the insufficiency of the plaintiff's burden, that they did not find that there was penetration in the way that the judge had described it, but that there was forcible sexual contact made with Jean Carroll by Trump without her consent. Now, the jury, when they come up with an award such as $5 million, they consider several factors: her loss of income, the damage to her reputation. And in this case, the jury did make a finding for punitive damages. That means that they found that Trump's conduct with regard to the sex abuse as well as the defamation was willful and malicious and with conscious disregard for Jeannie Carroll. But I think as a civil litigator, I think that the most important part was they really considered the emotional distress and the psychological pain. So though we don't know what the jury actually used to devise this figure, I'd go ahead and bet that it's really the emotional distress and the psychological pain that she testified to experiencing.
Ron is on set here with us. Let's bring you in here, Ron. And I want to talk about some of the reaction. We'll pull up a statement released by E. Jean Carroll. It read, in part, "I filed this lawsuit against Donald Trump to clear my name and get my life back. Today, the world finally knows the truth." And then on the other side of this, in addition to releasing a statement through a campaign spokesperson, Donald Trump posted this statement on his Truth Social platform, where he continued to state that he did not know who Carroll is and called the verdict a disgrace. Ron, tell us more about both sides' reaction to this verdict.
Well, they both reacted in what they said on the witness stand or in court. E. Jean Carroll appeared for several days. It was a very emotional time, 2 days of cross-examination, which at times was very aggressive by former President Trump's attorneys. Former President Trump did not appear in person, but he appeared in the deposition that he did last fall, where he basically says he doesn't know her, this is a disgrace, it's a hoax, so on and so forth. But he also appeared in an Access Hollywood tape, which we've all seen. And the E. Jean Carroll's attorney said basically that that was his confession to this particular allegation. Afterwards, Joe Tacopino, Trump's attorney, also reacted. Here's some of what he had to say.
He's firm in his belief, as many people are, that he cannot get a fair trial in New York City based on the jury pool. And I think one could argue that that's probably an accurate assessment based on what happened today.
Throughout cross-examination, Tacopino tried to tell the jury that E. Jean Carroll and her friends were politically motivated. They did not like Donald Trump, put it mildly, and that's what they said was their motivation. But obviously, the jury didn't buy it.
So, Kristin, obviously Trump's lawyer there plans to appeal this decision. What does that process look like when we're dealing with a civil case? What would be the arguments, the legal grounds here?
So they would probably petition or file a motion for turning the verdict over. In other words, asking the judge to step into the shoes of the jury and overturn that verdict. I can't imagine that will be granted. They'll then go to the higher courts. And I think some of the grounds that they'll probably raise will be the use of the deposition footage, because it was really damaging, and specifically the portions that were permitted by Judge Kaplan to be utilized. They may also seek other evidentiary findings that Judge Kaplan permitted, such as permission to allow those other women to testify about how Trump also sexually abused them. There was also the mistrial that was made, motion that was made in the middle of the trial. And so the denial of that mistrial and the grounds for that will also probably be the purpose of their appeal as well. And I think overall, Tacopino had said that the judge was treating him unfairly, and so they'll also look at that as well.
Ron, this is the first time that a former president has been found civilly liable of sexual misconduct, but he's not just a former president, he's a candidate again. We're getting any clues about what this means for the election?
Well, we'll see. It's not just this, and it is pretty monumental. We say this sort of matter-of-factly, a former president found liable for sexual assault, but that is pretty intense when you think about what's happened here. And but it's not just this case. There's a criminal case that Donald Trump faces in New York City. There's another civil case where he's accused of basically fraudulent business practices. There's the Georgia case involving tampering with the election, allegedly. There's the special prosecutors looking at January 6th. And the question is, over the coming weeks and months, whether the weight of that, all of that, will shift the political dynamic. I think people feel very strongly one way or another about former President Trump. And whether all of this moves the needle in one way or another will determine how 2024 plays out. And, that remains to be seen.
All right. Ron Allen and Kristin Gibbons Feden, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.